Now let's talk about the popen function in the OS module. So this is basically like the system function where you can send a command directly to the underlying operating system. The difference here is whatever response the operating system gets back, you're able to bring that into your Python script so that you can use it however it is that you need, right? So if you're going to do something like a ping command, you will actually receive the ping response back into your script, and then you can parse that to trigger whatever kind of events you want to trigger. So that is why the popen function is so useful, because you're able to get those responses back from the operating system. I will say a lot of people out there say that the sub-process module is a better way to do this. And frankly, it probably is from a security standpoint. So I think I've talked about before, you have the OS module that allows you to interact with the underlying operating system. There is a newer, better module called the sub-process module that also allows you to interact with the underlying operating system. That is more secure, but I'm already teaching the OS module, and so we're going to kind of go with this since we're already working in this particular module. So that's just kind of one of those things just to kind of keep in mind. Again, in the Python world, there's always about 20 ways to do any kind of thing that you want to do. So there is a different way of doing this, but today we're just going to work with popen in the OS module. Now here's an example of using the popen function with the ping command. So we're going to import the OS module. Response, so basically we need a variable for that value to be assigned to. So response equals os.popen, and then we're going to put the command here. So this is important that you understand how the command that you're running works in a particular operating system. If you're using Windows, if you run the ping command, it will ping 4 times and then it will stop automatically. The interesting thing with Linux or Mac OS is if you run the ping command, it will literally keep going until it's exited somehow, which means that if you just run it, basically your script will just never end, right? So what we do here is we do ping space -c for count to say how many times we want to ping. We're going to say 1 to cnn.com. So ping for a count of 1 to cnn.com. Now when we get this value back, it's going to be an object, you're going to get a response code, that type of thing. That's not necessarily what we want. We just want to be able to read the text from it. So I want to be able to bring this back, read the text, and then we're just going to print that text out on the screen. So if we run this now, basically we can see here down at our terminal, we pinged cnn.com, ping cnn.com 151.101.3.5. It gives us basically the latency, it gives us the packets received, the whole 9 yards. So the important thing to understand here is that this is being written out from Python, not simply from the terminal. And so that means now that we have that as a value for this variable, we can test against it. So if we wanted to create like a network monitoring utility so that we're pinging our server, we're pinging our router, we're pinging Google, verifying that everything is up and running, basically we can run this ping command, get the value back, do an if-else statement. So if one packet's received, then the site is up and we say it's good. If else, basically that's not there, it means it's down, and maybe you basically send out an email or you send out an SMS message or you light up a billboard or something like that. So the important thing to understand here is that you're running this command on the operating system. You're turning it into text, so this can either be read, we've done this before, either read for everything comes as a string, or read lines where every line comes in as a value of an index. You basically bring that in, that gets assigned to response, and then you're able to do with that variable whatever you want. Now, as I said, you can either use read to bring the value in as a string or read lines to bring this in. So every line in the response is a value within a list. Basically the same thing we had before, we're just swapping out with the read lines there. Now when I run this, basically, if you can tell, we have the square brackets open here, square bracket closes here. So ping cnn.com, blase, 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 comma. So this is index 0, 64 bytes, blase, 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 comma. This is index 1, simply a next line. So that's index 2, so on and so forth. So you can either bring this in as a string or as a list, depending on how you want to try to parse it. Now here's a little bit of a lab that you can play with. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to use a while true loop, and we're going to keep asking basically what site, what host should be pinged. So either cnn.com, a domain name, or an IP address, that type of thing. We are going to send that through the popen function using an f string, and then we are going to print out the response here, right? So import os. We are then going to clear the screen, so it's a nice clear screen. We're going to ask who should be pinged. It's going to clear the screen again, so that goes away. Then it's going to send the ping command, and then it's going to print the ping command out. So basically, when we run this now, look at this. Since it cleared the screen, it's going to say who should be pinged. So we say cnn.com. We hit enter. And then it gives us that response. It asks us who we should ping again, and we'll say fox.com, and we'll hit enter, and it pings fox.com. If we want to do Taco Bell.com, basically you get the point there. One of the interesting things though, and again, this is where I want to show you why it's important to understand how the operating system works and to kind of understand how an injection attack works, is basically what an injection attack is where you give the user the ability to put in something, and they put in some kind of what's called a delimiter, basically a way to stop the command and then add their own, right? So if we go here, right, we see our file explorer, and basically it looks like it did before. So we have an example, this script, and a new file that we created in one of our last sessions. So one of the things that I want to show you here is we go down here to who should we ping, right? Oops, there we go. Who should be pinged? So we have this down here. What if we put a semicolon in there to kind of screw with things a little bit? So we do cnn.com, as we did before, but then we do semicolon, and then we add touch, you've been hacked. Alright, so let's say we're basically trying to add a file into this, this directory, basically using this injection attack. Now when I hit enter, we're going to see we do get the response back from cnn.com, but over here you also see there's now a file called you've been hacked. And the reason is that's what's called an injection attack. So this script is running at my security level on this system. Basically the cnn.com, that's the first part of the command, that's supposed to be entered into the script. When I use the semicolon, what that then does is it says that's the end of that command. Now add an additional command, run this additional command on the operating system at the exact same time. So we pinged cnn.com and we ran the touch command to add you've been hacked to the system, and that's kind of an example of how injection attacks work and why you have to be careful. And so there's the popen function for you. You're able to send a command to the operating system and you're able to get the response back. As always, be incredibly careful because this is running at, whatever security level the user is that is running the script on the system, or the script is just running at automatically. So if somebody tries to compromise a script, literally all hell can break loose. This is one of those things I've talked about in the past with the bias of Silicon Dojo, where I am trying to explain to you concepts as easily and as quickly as possible, and in order to do that we skip over some things, and this is one of those areas where you do need to be careful, because if you're just running this on your computer, right, it's you on your computer creating your little apps, this will work absolutely fine. You shouldn't have any issues. But if you're going to create an app that you're going to be giving out to people in your company, this is where you might run into problems. There's something called sanitization. So in variables it's sanitization or validation, validating that the value coming in is what it's supposed to be, and then sanitizing a variable, basically cleaning out things like delimiters or things that might cause injection attacks. Those are something that we will talk about later. So just kind of to keep in mind, if you're going to use this for things that you're going to be giving out to people, do be careful with this, because injection attacks are a real possibility.